page is that? 76.
Jeez.
The funny thing is, this is my favorite story that I wrote in the class that I wrote these, and everybody kept telling me, fireside chat, read fireside chat, and I wanted to read this, so it's great that you gave me an excuse to do this. 76. This is actually more creative nonfiction, more nonfiction than creative, and this is an actual event that took place. A little hike. When you have a head shaped like mine, good hats are hard to come by. I wish I had known, because I would have worn the hat too. That was Haberdashers do not typically cater to the melon-shaped noggin demographic. Therefore, when I am fortunate enough to stumble upon a hat that fits me, I find that I must possess it. Such was the cherished treasure I discovered last summer, a well-worn, sun-faded cowboy hat, put up for adoption at a local yard sale. It had slipped as effortlessly under my thick, lumpy skull as a leathery, wide-brimmed glass slipper. It was a perfect fit, and at $7, it was a perfect price. It was as if we were destined to be together. A week after this charmed first encounter, my newly obtained prize headgear proudly accompanied me to my friend Buzhna's Memorial Day party. Buzhna was a large, red-faced soul that I had known since the days when we walked to high school together. He was still large and red-faced. He came from a long line of perpetually blushing giants, all of whom still lived together on a decent parcel of land somewhere along the New York-New Jersey border. Buzhna's parents were first-generation Polish immigrants who spoke broken English and smiled a lot. His younger brother Seth was the spitting image of him, as if someone had taken an extra-large Pollock and broken it in half. They were all large, beefy people with wide shoulders and firm grips. A handshake from any of them would easily drop you to your knees. It was to their humble estate that I and several other friends were invited for a holiday weekend of food, alcohol, and spirited camaraderie. Non-Buzhnas in attendance included Buzhna's girlfriend Jen and Seth's fiancée Jane, two attractive young women still unaware that they were in way over their heads. Mutual bad movie lover Joey Kaz, short for Casanova, and his lovely white mare, short for Mary Ellen, and of course, me and my wonderful hat. Jose was there too. Jose and I shared an unusual relationship. Casual acquaintances through mutual friends. We quickly became the kind of pseudo-friends that often result when two people invariably end up invited to the same social gatherings. At first, it seemed that a mutual affection for movies and comic books might result in a comfortable camaraderie. However, it soon became apparent that we were as compatible as 4th of July sparklers and kittens soaked in gasoline. When Jose and I attend a gathering of mutual friends, we usually manage to maintain a cautious and uncomfortable accord, not unlike zebras and cheetahs drinking at opposite ends of the same watering hole. Our interactions are immediately consistent at the outset as I cautiously ignore Jose's friendly greetings at first, clinging tenaciously to my unpleasant memories of our last meeting. Eventually, I start feeling silly for holding a grudge, so I strike up a hesitant conversations. Our dialogue goes well, and we invariably begin to warm up to one another. This lasts about as long as it takes Jose to say something that strikes me as rude, stupid, annoying, or a special combination of all three. Then, proving a complete lack of retained knowledge, I speak out against this imagined slight, and the animosity between us once again blooms in a wondrous display of colorful insults and a newfound lack of respect for one another. This sets us up for a repeat performance at the next informal gathering, perpetuating our cyclical and internally dysfunctional relationship. Despite the better intentions of all involved, this evening is to be no different. Guests arrive early, drinks are readily dispensed, and spirits are immediately high all around. Buzhna's father takes newcomers on brief tours of the house and garden, while Buzhna and Seth staff the sizable grill full of smoking, sizzling piles of a wide variety of dead animal flesh. Jose and I lapse quickly into the buddy stage of our psychological game of leapfrog. We chuckle amiably and wax philosophically about Hitchcock's use of lighting or some other such film snob geekery. This rapid ascent toward friendship is helped along by the fact that Jane and I single-handedly consumed several pitchers of exponentially potent margaritas in an alarmingly short time span. By the time the third pitcher runs dry, I am feeling no animosity whatsoever towards Jose. I am also exhibiting no signs of pain, balance, or common sense. On top of this, my newfound hat is the belle of the ball. I receive enough compliments on my glorious chapeau to elevate my pride nearly as high as my blood alcohol content. Mirth and merriment are enjoyed by all, as are cheeseburgers, sausages, and even more margaritas. All is right with the world. Then Seth has a great idea. Let's go on a little hike. Why not take a short hike through the thick, hilly woods behind the house? He can take us on a brief 1-hour tramp through their backyard forest and have us back before sunset for another round of barbecue chicken and those sweet, sweet margaritas. Agreement is unanimous. It sounds like fun. Seth knows the trails and the house is right here. What could possibly go wrong? We immediately prepare for a little hike, arming ourselves with nothing more than enthusiasm, energy, my marvelous hat, and an air horn. The air horn is courtesy of Buzhna's father, given to us as protection against the black bears occasionally spotted deeper in the woods. He assures us that a few short blasts from the horn will scare off any mildly curious or aggressive bears. As reluctant as I am to accept the sage advice of those more knowledgeable than me, the idea of repelling a large omnivorous predator with an annoying horn seems suspect. It is remarkable how willing we can be to believe dubious or logically questionable facts supplied to us when we are outside of our natural element. Is a large bear menacing you? Don't worry, just use this novelty noisemaker and it will scurry away with its tail and bring you its legs. I get the basic idea that animals are easily startled by loud noise. My cat hides behind the couch whenever I run the vacuum cleaner. Then again, my cat doesn't weigh 500 pounds and has never killed a full-grown moose with a single blow in the neck. At least not to my knowledge. A dead moose is hard to miss when left on your doorstep. I'm going to burn through this, apologize. My immediate suspicion is that the air horn theory actually has the reverse effect. After years of people adhering to this belief, black bears probably recognize the sound of the air horn as a high-pitched dinner bell, conveniently alerting them to the presence of lost campers with no discernible survival skills. Despite these misgivings, I'm far too intoxicated to argue such trivialities. My hat is awesome and my cheeks are numb. Let us go on a hike. Our trip through the forest starts out as entertaining as we had hoped. We do what most groups of friends do on casual woodland hikes. We pose for pictures on large rocks, pretend to see bears in the distance, and joke about how this reminds us of that horror film where the kids get lost in the woods and are hunted down and killed one by one. I silently ridicule Jose for wearing his black leather jacket on the hike. It must be at least 97 degrees in that thing, all hot and stifling. My cowboy hat, on the other hand, heightens my self-importance and shades my eyes from the sun. I do not voice these thoughts. There is no need. My hat openly mocks Jose's jacket. An hour later, some of us begin to notice that we are not yet back at the house, eating chicken and drinking heavily. 15 minutes later, Seth admits that he is lost. It slowly dawns on us, on the rest of us, that this invariably means that we are lost too. Seth apologizes profusely and promises to get us home. We accept his request for forgiveness and continue to follow his lead. The idea of readily expecting the person who got us lost in the first place to turn around and miraculously make us the opposite of lost seems more than a bit naive. However, my still somewhat inebriated, hat-shouldered brain, which recently questioned the shrewdness of scaring bears with horns, now argues that Seth is still the most qualified guide among us, despite his current lack of orientation. It is at this point that Buzhna decides to mention that the stretch of forest we are now hopelessly lost in is part of the Appalachian Trail. The Appalachian Trail, it seems, is one of the longest hiking trails in the nation. It is 2,000 miles long, winding through 14 states on its way from Georgia to Maine. Hikers will often spend days, even weeks, making the journey from one end to the other. Apparently, we are wandering aimlessly somewhere around the middle of it. In the light of this new piece of information, our mutual confidence deteriorates rapidly. My hat fails to comfort me. Cell phones. A quick survey finds only 3 of us, myself included, had the foresight to bring our phones along with us. Out of these, 2 of us, myself included, forgot to charge them. Seth and I both have maybe 10 minutes of battery life left on our phones, so we decided to save them for more dire circumstances. The only fully charged cell phone belongs to Jose, but his provider is Sprint. Surprise, surprise, he cannot get a signal. Nice phone, Marconi, it matches your jacket. Seth changes course several times over the next half hour, each time pausing to deliberate thoughtfully. Rumblings of ill content descend among the ranks. We begin to share ideas on how to find our way back to base camp Buzhna. Suddenly, everyone is trying to figure out which way north is. The high trees and overcast skies effectively hide the position of the sun, and nobody can seem to find any moss. I shake my head at these attempts at primitive navigation. I have never bought the idea that moss only grows on a certain side of a tree. Moss is moss. It has about as much sense of direction as our current guide. Moss grows wherever the hell it pleases. Besides, what are we going to do with a northward bearing? I'm almost positive that nobody noted the longitudinal direction of our initial departure. I mean, it would be different if we had a map of some kind. I I slap my forehead.
Very good, honey.
Narrowly avoiding coupling the brim of my hat. A map. I have a GPS on my cell phone for driving directions. It isn't a smartphone, but the small screen still shows a map with a small blue dot indicating the current location. With this fortunate piece of modern technology in hand, I shall save the day. I boldly announce my new plan to my fellow wanderers and invite them to huddle around my hat as I divine our true location and thus lead the way to safety and margaritas. The GPS will cookie suck the life out of my phone's remaining charge, but it should still last long enough to show us exactly where we are. Proudly, almost smugly, I switch on my phone and start up the GPS. We all stare in silence as the phone searches for a signal, establishes a connection with numerous unseen satellites, and triangulates our exact location. Then, with a complete lack of fanfare, my phone displays the small blue dot indicating our present location. Since there are no streets nearby, the small blue dot clearly shows our location on a completely blank field of gray. We are here. No one says anything. We just stare at the screen as the phone's battery dies, our useless map fading to black. As soon as I get home, I'm canceling my GPS subscription. Maybe I'll spend the money on a nice hat rack.
No. Woo! Yeah! Fabulous.
Thank you everyone for waiting around longer than you expected. Appreciate it.